3 a.m., March 18, 1990. The Boston Police Department receives an unexpected call from the Isabella Gardner Museum security. It's 23-year-old Rick Abbott, one of the two guards securing the museum at night.
Please come now. We just got robbed.
All units in the area immediately move on scene. Police officers are met by the two security guards who were in a state of shock. On the first floor, only one artwork is missing. But as soon as officers got on the second floor, things looked much worse. 12 priceless paintings are gone. We're talking masterpieces by renowned artists: Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Manet. Combined, the stolen pieces are worth $500 million. Police find that security cameras were off, and the two guards are clueless of the thieves' identities. Many questions, zero answers. How did it happen? Who was involved? And how are the pieces still missing to this day? We modeled the entire thing to show how the whole thing went down. This is the story of the biggest heist in American history. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum is more than just a museum. It's a work of art itself. Isabella Stewart Gardner was a wealthy art collector who commissioned its construction to house her impressive collection. Before becoming a museum, the building, known as Fenway Court, was built between 1900 and 1903 by Isabella Stewart Gardner. The museum is composed of 3 floors. The first floor houses the entrance, the main courtyard, and several galleries exhibiting artworks, sculptures, and decorative arts. The second and third floor are accessible via staircases and hallways, which display the rest of Isabella's collection. Whereas the fourth floor was primarily residential during Gardner's lifetime, it is largely not open to the public. The artwork is displayed in a non-chronological and unconventional manner, reflecting Gardner's personal aesthetic. The art is segregated in different rooms: Spanish cloister, Chinese loggia, Spanish chapel, yellow room, blue room, and the Dutch room. The museum is equipped with over 20 cameras, some pointing outside towards the road, a few inside looking at galleries, and a couple in the courtyard. In 1990, the museum was guarded by 4 security guards during the day and 2 during the night. The night guards are 23-year-old Rick Abbott and 25-year-old Randy Hestand. Rick is a music school dropout and part of a rock band. He was a rock performer by day and a security guard at the museum by night. By his own admission, he would sometimes show up for work drunk or stoned after a performance. One time, he described his job at the museum as the most boring job in the world. The two would spend the night between the surveillance room and the museum's corridors. When it's cold, walks around the museum are less frequent, like the night of March 18, 1990. It's a little after midnight. Rick and Randy are about to find out that their job at the Gardner Museum is far from boring. Their world is about to turn upside down. But you don't have to be a security guard during a heist to have your world turned upside down. In today's day and age, scammers and spammers are working around the clock to extract and use your personal information online for their own benefit. Your data is worth millions for shady data brokers who sell your information every day to scammers who could steal your identity, tap your phones, or even access your banking details. That's why we use Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura is an all-in-one digital security platform that keeps you safe online by doing all the hard work for you. They will constantly monitor the dark web and alert you if they find any of your personal information, like address, passcodes, credit cards, bank accounts, basically anything that could be used against you. Aura also has a built-in VPN with over 100 virtual locations, allowing to keep your address private and access shows and services that are otherwise unavailable in your area. And if anything goes wrong, Aura has got you covered with up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. Try Aura free for 14 days by clicking the first link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen. 14 days is more than enough time to discover where your data is being exposed and sold. Thank you, Aura, for sponsoring this video. At precisely 1 a.m., a car pulls up to the side entrance of the museum, and 2 men in police uniforms exit the vehicle and approach the side door. They ring the buzzer and ask to be let in as they are responding to a disturbance. Since it is St. Patrick's Day, Rick Abbott chalks it up to someone vandalizing the side of the building. Seeing that the two men were police officers, he buzzes them in, and at 1:24 a.m., they were led into the museum. The police officers come in and ask Rick if anyone else is in the building. They tell him to have them come down to the front desk. Rick does what they say and radios Hestan to come down. While they are waiting, the officers start questioning Rick. They ask him if he has any warrants because he looks familiar to them. Then, they order him to walk over to them. Rick nervously steps away from the front desk, which is the only place where the panic button is located. Then, all of a sudden, the fake officers change their tone and aggressively force Rick against the wall and put him in handcuffs. At this point, Rick is still under the perception that they were legit cops, so he immediately corroborates without any resistance. At that moment, Hestan comes back from the tour and finds the strange scene. The robbers rush to put Hestan in cuffs and walk both guards to the basement. On their way, the robbers tell Rick and Hestan that they're not actually cops and that they know who they are, where they live, and all their family members in the area. And if they complied and kept their mouths shut, they would be given a reward. After subduing the two guards in the basement, the thieves now had full access to the museum and quickly went to work. It's 1:35 a.m. and suddenly, motion detectors in the Dutch room, where the most valuable art is kept, pick up movement. This triggers an alarm that's supposed to go off if someone gets too close to the art. The thieves quickly destroy the alarm device. Then, they go for Rembrandt's Storm on the Sea of Galilee and a lady and gentleman in black, but they're not done yet. They also grab a Rembrandt self-portrait. While one thief is busy removing the paintings off the walls, the others cutting them out of their frames with a box cutter. One of them tries to get Vermeer's The Concert, but messes up, leaving a big chunk of the top part of the painting in the frame. One of the thieves leaves the area and heads into a nearby hallway. 1:51 a.m. They decide to grab a golden eagle finial from a Napoleonic flagpole. At this point, they're loaded down with artwork, but they decide to make one last stop. At 2 a.m., they go into the Blue Room on the first floor and take Chez Tortoni by Manet. That's the last thing they steal. At 2:11 a.m., the thieves check on the security guards, head to the security office and grab the videos from the security cameras along with the printouts from the motion detectors. Around 2:40 a.m., they open the side entrance and load the artwork into their car. By 2:45 a.m., the door is closed for the last time. They get in their car and drive off. From the time they arrived at the museum to the time they left, it was only 81 minutes. In that short amount of time, they stole $500 million worth of art, and it's never been seen again. Right after the heist went down, the FBI took over the whole case. They figured the paintings were going to be moved out of state, maybe even out of the country. They needed to move quickly. The details about what exactly was stolen really confused both the cops and the museum staff. The stolen paintings were different. Some were worth tens of millions, even close in value to the Mona Lisa. Others, not so much. Maybe they're not dealing with expert art thieves, which led the FBI to taking looks at low-level thugs with possible ties to organized crime. The FBI quickly knew there was no physical evidence left at the museum. After questioning the security guards, authorities were quickly finding leads drying up within a matter of hours of the crime. The only vague description given about the thieves was extremely basic, with little detail on any features of their faces. Working with what they had, police released this sketch of the thieves. The flag of suspicion rose to security guard Rick almost immediately, as his movements and recounting of that night were quite bizarre. The night of the heist, he opened the side door for no apparent reason. When they asked him about it, he said he did it every night to make sure it was closed and locked. But it turned out that was a lie. When they checked the camera recordings from before, Rick had never actually done that before the night of the heist. The side door was the one the thieves entered through. Rick has maintained his innocence and has never been charged with anything involved in this case.
Very dramatically said, "Gentlemen, this is a robbery."
In 1994, a major lead came in the form of 2 letters, both being sent to the museum director, Anne Hawley. In the first letter, it is stated that the writer was a negotiator and they did not know the identity of the people behind the burglary. They went on to say that the reason for the theft was to reduce a prison sentence of an unnamed individual. But since that time had passed, they had no need for the art and wanted to sell it back to the museum for $2.6 million and immunity from prosecution. They also wrote that the artworks were being kept in a different country and were safe. Director Hawley agreed to buy. But a few days later, on May 5th, 1994, the second letter was sent with the writer pleased with the agreement. But the writer didn't like the fact that authorities would be involved in the transaction. And that was the last thing Hawley ever heard from the writer. The case pretty much stalled until about 1997. Since their usual methods weren't getting them anywhere, the museum and the FBI decided to ask the public for help. They offered a massive $5 million reward for any information leading to the suspects or the stolen artwork. As you can imagine, with that kind of money on the table, people were flooding the tip lines. However, most of the tips were useless and many were just plain ridiculous. People were naming gangsters who had been dead for 20 years or even suggesting aliens were involved. The FBI's main theory was that organized crime was behind it. They figured it was highly unlikely that a random person or a small group could pull off such a heist and stay hidden for so long. After years of working undercover, following leads and handling the pressure of media, in 2013, the FBI announced they knew who was responsible for the heist. And the two men were George Reisfelder and David Turner, two low-level thugs who worked for none other than Carmelo Merlino, who was a known figure in the New England Mafia. They were hired to perform the heist, which would explain the carelessness. The descriptions, while vague, did match, and both were out of prison at the time of the heist. But the problem is that George Reisfelder died right after the robbery of a drug overdose, taking the secret of the heist to his grave. As for David Turner, he was freed in 2019 after serving 21 years for his role in foiled $50 million plan to rob a Loomis Fargo armored truck at gunpoint back in 1999. Turner insisted on knowing nothing about the Gardner Museum heist. With no concrete evidence against him, he never got charged. He still refuses to talk about it to anyone to this day. Now that we know who was behind the heist, the only question left is, where's the stolen art? A man named Bobby Donati raises even more questions. Some say he was part of the heist, with 5 men involved instead of the initially thought 2. Donati allegedly helped move the paintings to a storage unit in Philadelphia, then later to Brooklyn. Journalist Tom Nash Berg investigated this and found that an antique dealer, William Youngworth, knew the storage unit's location. In August 1997, Youngworth took Nash Berg to a storage complex in Brooklyn. There, Nash Berg was shown what appeared to be the storm on the Sea of Galilee. To prove its authenticity, he was given paint chips. The examination showed a perfect match to one of the stolen paintings, but it was a match to the concert instead of the storm on the Sea of Galilee. This raises even more questions. Why paint chips from a different painting? Despite the confusion, this remains the strongest lead to date on the missing artworks. After more than 3 decades, these priceless masterpieces are still missing. Only empty frames to remind everyone the gap in the collection until the stolen works come home. If you like our video style and curious about our animations, we made a package with over 60 assets, 3D animations and pictures that you could use in any way you see fit, completely free of charge. Click the link in the description and claim our gift to you. Subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.